Good morning. Today we are starting with chapter 15, Biodiversity and Conservation, which is now the last chapter of the 2020 syllabus as proposed by CBSE. Now, if an alien from a distant galaxy to visit our planet Earth, the first thing that would amaze and baffle him would most probably be the enormous diversity of life that he would encounter. Even for humans, the rich diversity of living organisms with which they share this planet and never ceases to astonish and fascinate us. So, the common man would find it hard to believe that there are more than 20,000 species of ants, 3 lakh species of beetles, 28,000 species of fishes, and nearly 20,000 species of orchids are there. So, ecologists and evolutionary biologists have been trying to understand the significance of such diversity by asking important questions. Why are there so many species? Did such great diversity exist throughout Earth's history? And how did this diversification come about? How and why is this diversity important to the biosphere? And would it function any differently if the diversity was much less? And how do humans benefit from the diversity of life? All these answers will be getting in this chapter. So let's start with this chapter, biodiversity and its conservation. Now, topics to be covered will have biodiversity, genetic diversity, species diversity, ecological diversity will be dealing with. How many species are there on Earth and in India? Patterns of diversity, importance of species diversity, loss of biodiversity, fragmentation, overexploitation, and various reasons for the loss of biodiversity. Then we'll talk about conservation and why should we conserve and how do we conserve, and various methods of conservation and diversity. So when we talk in our biosphere, immense diversity for heterogeneity exists not only at the species level but at all levels of biological organization, ranging from macromolecules within cells to biomes. So how many species are there on the earth and how many in India? With this pie chart we can see the number of species in the world and number of species which are available in the world and the number of species in India. Biodiversity hotspots there in northeast India, Himalayas, Western Ghats, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Biodiversity types. Now, biodiversity is the term which is popularized by sociobiologist Edward Wilson to describe the combined diversity in all the 3 levels of biological organization. The most important of them are the genetic diversity. Now, a single species might show high diversity at the genetic level over its distributional range. The genetic variation shown by medicinal plants, Rauwolfia, growing in greater Himalayas ranges might be in terms of the potency and concentration of the active chemical, that is rizapine, that the plant produces. So India has more than 50,000 genetically different strains of rice and 1,000 varieties of mangoes. Species diversity. The diversity at the species level, for example, the Western Ghats have a greater amphibian species diversity than the Eastern Ghats. Ecological diversity. So at the ecosystem level, India with its deserts, rain, forests, mangroves, coral reefs, wetlands, estuaries, alpine meadows has a greater ecosystem diversity than the Scandinavian country like Norway. So it has been taken millions of years of evolution to accumulate this diversity in nature, but we could lose all that wealth in less than 2 centuries if the present rates of species losses continue. So biodiversity and its conservation are now vital environmental issues of international concern as more and more people around the world begin to realize the critical importance of biodiversity for our survival and well-being on this planet. Now, let's discuss how many species are there discovered and named. We know that how many species in all we have recorded so far, but it's not easy to answer the question of how many species are there on the earth. Now, according to International Code for Nomenclature, the total number of plant and animal species described so far are more than 1.5 million, but we have to clear the idea that how many species are yet to be discovered and described. Many of the for many taxonomic groups, species inventories are more complex in temperate than in tropical countries. Considering them, the large proportions of the species waiting to be discovered are in tropics. So biologists made a statistical comparison of the temperate tropical species richness as an exhaustively studied group of insects and ratio of this group of animals and plants to come up with a gross estimate of the total number of species on earth. So some extreme estimates range from 20 to 50 million, but a more conservative and scientifically sound estimate made by Robert May places the global species diversity to about 5 million. So let us look at some interesting aspects about the Earth's biodiversity based on the currently available species inventories. Now more than 70% of the species recorded are animals, while plants include algae, fungi, bryophytes. Here you can have a look at this pie chart. So among plants, they are algae, fungi, bryophytes, gymnosperms and angiosperms, and they comprise no more than 22% of the total. So among animals, insects, here you can see the insects, they are the most species rich taxonomic group, making up to 70% of the total. That means out of the 10 animals on this planet, 7 are insects. Again, how do we explain this enormous diversification of insects? The number of fungi species in the world. Here you can see in this pie chart, the fungi species in the world is more than the combined total of the species of fishes, amphibians, reptiles and mammals. So the biodiversity is depicted showing species number of the major taxa here. So in invertebrates, vertebrates and plants, we can see here fishes, they are the most number as compared to the other. Here insects, and here fungi and angiosperms. So it should be noted that these estimates do not give any figure for prokaryotes. So biologists are not sure about how many prokaryotic species there might be, and the problem is that conventional taxonomical methods are not suitable for identifying microbial species, and many species are simply not cultural under lab conditions. So if we accept biochemical or molecular criteria, so the diversity alone might run into millions. India has only 2.4% of the world's land area. Its shares of the global species diversity in an impressive 8.1%. So that is what makes our country one of the 12 mega diverse countries of the world, and 45,000 species of plants are twice as many of animals have been recorded from India. So how many living species are actually there waiting to be discovered and names? And if we accept May's global estimates, only 22% of the total species have been recorded so far. So the proportion of India's diversity figures, we estimate that there are probably more than 1 lakh plant species, more than 3 lakh animal species are yet to be discovered and described. So consider this taxonomist and the time required to complete the job. The situation appears when we realize that a large fraction of these species faces the great threat of becoming extinct even before we discover them. So nature's biological library is burning even before we catalog the titles of all the books stocked up to there. So we must conserve the biodiversity. Thank you.